Welcome back, everyone. It is great to see you. I hope you're having a fantastic day or night when you are watching this video. The support class of Marvel Rivals feels good. It feels great to play support because it seems like what you do impacts the match. You have damage sometimes, you have great heals sometimes, your ultimates are fantastic. However, once you start climbing the ranks, you start to notice that healers have a lot more power than I think they should. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's talk strategist. Now there's a few problems with the strategist, and I'm just going to use the word support. I'm not going to say strategist every single time. So there's a few problems with support. As I said before, it feels great. It feels good. And you know, there's not really a lot of flaws to them in terms of their own gameplay. However, when they impact the match, all 12 players as a whole, that's when you start to see a little bit of inconsistencies when it comes to how effective they are. Now, I have a few core points I want to talk about. If you guys have any core points you want to talk about, whether for better or worse, let me know down in the comments. What is your take on support right now? Does it need a buff? Does it need a nerf? Let me know in the comments below. So one of the first core points I want to talk about is the last person to ult problem. So as you start to climb, support start using their ults for more or less engages, right? So when we're talking about Cloak and Dagger, usually she'll pop her ult on, let's just say Convoy, when you're pushing the payload. She'll pop her ult, she'll go forward. What does that do? It triggers a response from the enemy support. So then the enemy support ults. What does that do? Your second support then ults, and then their second support ults. However, because your first support ulted, their support ults last, which means they have a few seconds before they're quote unquote invulnerable before the team fight's over. Usually, you're gonna lose that team fight. Sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes their support has their ultimate, but your support doesn't for whatever reason. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get their ult, or maybe they weren't healing as much, or maybe they KO'd quite frequently. So their ult's not up yet. And their support gets the ult, win the team fight. By the time the next team fight happens, their support has ult, your support has ult, but your support fires it off first. So they won 2 team fights effectively. Now I do wanna say there are ults in the game that can KO a teammate, right? You know, they're like Magneto, Iron Man. Like, you do have some of these one-shot ults, but you're saying that the player needs to play one of these one-shot ultimate characters because my healer can't do their ult properly. Now I do want to mention all my videos are from a solo queue standpoint. I'm not playing with a group of 5 or a group of 3 or anything like that. It's just by myself when I climb the ladder. And that's something that I run into quite frequently, is the fact that either my support just uses it willy-nilly, my support uses it wrong, my support gets KO during the ultimate, and the fight's just lost. The second problem that I kind of have an issue with is just having one defensive ult on your team. So let's just say I'm playing Cloak and Dagger and my teammate's playing, I don't know, Jeff, right? In that sense, we have one defensive ult, which means if I ult first, we lose. If they ult first, then I ult, then they ult again, we lose, because Jeff doesn't have a defensive ult, right? He can eat people, but like, you're really banking on that player to be really good at eating people. In a lot of these scenarios, in my opinion, it seems like you lose fights based off what the supports do. If you have a Star-Lord on the enemy team, and you have to use your ult for Star-Lord to save your team or something like that, right? Or whatever, any DPS has a wipe ult and you have to use it. Well, now you're down a defensive ult, your Jeff doesn't have a defensive ult, and they have 2 defensive ults. You lose the fight anyway. So if we backtrack, because I'm one defensive ult only, we lose the fight because they have 2 and we have 1. But if I waste it on a DPS, we lose the fight. If I don't use it on the DPS, we lose the fight. Either way, we're losing the fight. As I said before, this is from a solo queue perspective. This is not from a group of 5. I can't tell my teammates to swap to whatever they want to because most likely they will not. Again, why are we losing? It's not necessarily because our team can't play the game right. It's because we don't have the supports. Now, I do want to say that going into this patch with Emma Frost, so we're moving into season 2, it seems that the team is wanting to lean into having multiple characters that don't have that AoE defensive ult capability. They want to make it happen. So they gave Rocket a defensive ult capability. He's now giving players bonus health for ulting. Now, is that really the direction that we want to go? Let me know down in the comments below what you think. If that's the direction that we plan to go in, the problem really isn't solved. When you start playing with better supports, you start ending up in a position to where that's all that matters. Unless you can win the fight before they have their ultimate, which does happen, and they also introduced Emma Frost to allow players to prevent them from ulting. Even the team understands that that's a problem because they're starting to lean into things that can solve that problem. If that does not happen, then you lose the fight if your supports don't do it right. And I feel like there's no agency for the tank and there's no agency for the DPS. The only agency they have is to force out the enemy healer's ultimate. However, again, if you have only one healer, you can force theirs out, but then you're still in that situation of like, well, they still have one and we have one. Your support ults early, there's ults after, you lose the fight. So you wasted your ultimate for baiting out their healer, and now you don't really have anything left, and now you're banking on your team to play the fight right. Like, I don't know. It just seems like there's so much more agency when it comes to healers as you start climbing the ranks or as you start getting to better support players, that there's not really a lot of wiggle room for you to win the actual team fights. The team fights. Remember, the game is structured in many different type of fights. I'm talking about the full force, we blow everything team fights. Usually the healers get their ult so quickly that they have it every team fight, which means you don't really have a lot of wiggle room. The only way that happens is if you take them out first, or again, you bait their ultimate and pray your team knows what to do after you baited their ultimate. Ain't nothing worse than you baiting their ultimate, your team gets wiped anyway, and then the next fight that happens, they have their ultimate up before you have your ultimate up, and you just, like, you literally just wasted time for nothing. You might as well have held your stuff. The last point that I kind of wanted to hit on is the fact that some healers just can't heal through an insane amount of damage. Now, one thing about this game is there is tons of damage. People think the heals are in this game, there's just way too much healing. Well, that's because there's way too much damage in this game. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that there's a lot of damage in this game. So when you're in a situation that you have healers that can't pump through that damage, it starts to feel like, well, I'm gonna lose because of that. You know what I mean? Like, so let's just say Mantis. I like Mantis, but most Mantis players can probably agree that her effectiveness isn't just through heals. It is mostly through heals and then her actually taking out other players, right? If we're in a situation where I want to play Mantis, but I'm not that great at taking out players, what do? You can't play Mantis then because it's not enough heals. And that's not the only character. Rocket runs into this issue, which they obviously tried to fix for season 2. We haven't seen it yet, but it feels like that issue was fixed. Adam Warlock kind of runs into this issue where he has no more heals, or the heals just aren't that great sometimes. There's many healers that just do not have a lot of heals. A lot of the healing that we have right now is very focused around ultimates or focused around just being one of the better healers at the time. And if that's the case, having someone, especially at a higher rank, having someone pick something like Jeff, pick something like Mantis in a 2 heal comp is going to be kind of rough because they have something. They have Invisible Woman, they have Cloak and Dagger, and these characters heal a lot more. So then now I can't play the character that I want to play because my tanks are taking way too much damage and my support can't deal with it. Do you know what I mean? So now we're at a point where I can't play something that has no defensive ult capabilities because now we're at a point where we're playing with really good players and they know how to use their ultimates properly. If I don't have a defensive ult, it seems like I have to bank on my team to understand when to hide, if Star-Lord ults or Hela ults, how to move out the way if Cloak and Dagger ults, and that's a lot to really depend on just some random players to do. But the fact that if you don't have a team with the defensive ult capability, you're gonna lose. The fact that if you have a support that doesn't heal that well, you're gonna lose. The fact that if they have 3 supports, 3 defensive ults, heaven forbid, Luna Frost, Cloak and Dagger, Invisible Woman, or just swap any of those out with Loki, 3 AoE defensive ults, and you have a Jeff and a Rocket, you lost. If you have 1 defensive ult, you lost. If you have 2 defensive ults, you lost. No matter what, you lose because they have 3. So at the end of the day, I'm curious on what your thoughts are. Like I said, I think support feels great when you're talking about the individual player aspect, but it just kind of feels a little bit stressful and a little frustrating when you lose fights because your support might not have ulted right. You lose fights because your support may not have had their ultimate at that time. You lose fights because your support picked Jeff or Rocket. Well, Rocket's probably not gonna be a problem anymore because they added the survivability, but picks a character that doesn't have that defensive ultimate when your team really needs one, and they just decide not to swap. So I don't know, guys. For me personally, my personal opinion, I don't even know how you would fix this. To be real, I have no clue how you would fix this. Maybe make the support ults longer, maybe make the support duration ult shorter so players have to really time when they use their ultimate so that you can bait a team fight and then just walk out and wait for it, because these ults last for upwards of like 10 seconds. That's a really a long time to just try to walk away while their enemy teams are just like pelting you with shots. You know what I mean? So I don't really know how they would fix this, but right now it definitely seems like, to me at least, that supports are very strong, especially when we're looking at their ultimate capabilities or their make or break type of gameplay when it comes to team fights, right? Final note, I do understand that you could fight after they ult. Like, let's just say both supports ulted, you can just wait and then fight when nobody has ult. That's true. But the problem is a lot of supports or a lot of DPS players tend to take way too much damage, allowing for the healer to get their ultimate quicker. Invisible Woman, as an example, can heal and do damage. So while your team is fighting, maybe your tank is just walking out there getting popped with by the Invisible Woman, but the Invisible Woman's also healing her team, which allows her to get her ult faster. So I don't know what they plan to do. I don't know, maybe you guys have suggestions on what they can do, but right now I just feel like support ultimates and support in general might just be a bit too strong. And as you get to the higher ranks, it kind of feels a little dull because that's what you're waiting for. You're waiting for the support to make or break the team fight. And if they don't, you just kind of lose the fight, unfortunately. So yeah, I don't know what they plan to do. I know someone said that Ultron is not gonna have a AoE type defensive ult. We don't know what it's gonna be. There's leaks, of course, but we don't know until he hits. Maybe he has a way to deal with that. Maybe like anti-healing is something that they can bring to the game so that the support ultimates aren't so super strong and we're punishing supports. Maybe we can supports just firing off their ults, or maybe we can shorten the duration of some of these ultimates so that way people don't have to worry about KOing in the ult, right? You're ulting to save your team. You're not ulting as a way to initiate a team fight and then win the team fight because they don't have their ultimate. You know, I feel like the supports need to be dialed back a little bit to be a support and not be a dictator of the match. I don't know how they would do this, and and basically if they do anything too much, they will ruin how support feels, and I don't want that, because it is nice to make it seem like the support has a way to carry their games as well. But as I said, when you get to the when you start breaking the threshold of like really great teams and good team fights understanding and stuff like that, it just really doesn't feel like you have a chance if your support doesn't play a defensive ult support, and if your support just decides to not play well and fires off ults willy-nilly and you don't really have one. So I don't know, that's just my thoughts. As you guys know, I like doing these talks. If you guys have anything you want me to talk about, let me know down in the comments below. What topics do you guys want to see? So that way your topic can be featured in the next video and we can talk about that. I climb both on PC and on console. So I have a great understanding of both platforms, and yeah, I like to talk and see what you guys have to say. I really love reading your comments. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, you know what I always say. Thank you guys for doing what? Popping often. We're locked in.